This happened about 6 months ago when I had just transitioned from my corporate job to freelancing. I was in my cluttered apartment, surrounded by stacks of papers. I had a coffee in hand and was piecing together stories about space exploration. It felt normal enough back then, just me and the late-night quiet. One night, while I was flipping through archived NASA records, I stumbled upon a forgotten mission report from '99. My heart raced. The words jumped out. Alien structure found on an asteroid. I couldn't believe it. I read the report over and over. It was horrible and fascinating at the same time. I felt drawn in, excited. It was the purpose I'd been looking for. I sent myself into the research. I spent hours digging into the findings. Then I got my first email. It was anonymous. It warned me to stop looking into the mission. I wasn't sure if I should take it seriously. Maybe it was just a prank. Still, a chill crept up my spine. The next day, my power flickered off and on. I thought it was just the old wires in my apartment. But then strange noises started. I couldn't sleep. My heart raced more often. Was it the caffeine or something else? Weeks passed, and each night was filled with odd events. Symbols appeared in the margins of my notes. I was sure I hadn't drawn them. They looked ancient or alien. I couldn't shake the feeling I was being watched. I found one of the symbols in an astronomy book at my local library. My breath caught. What was happening? At 3 a.m. one night, I woke up to a loud crash. My heart raced even more. I leapt out of bed and rushed to the living room. Everything seemed in place, but I felt cold. I scanned the room, wondering if I was losing my grip on sanity. That's when I got another email. Stop or face the consequences. This one felt different, more threatening. I looked up from my screen. My lights flickered, pulsing like my heart. I could hear my breathing, heavy and labored. I grabbed my notes, hoping to regain control. That's when I felt it, a presence in the room. I turned, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure in the doorway. I blinked, and it was gone. Maybe I was just imagining things. I wasn't sure anymore. Panic bubbled in my chest. I forced myself to breathe. Then I looked back at my computer. The screen flashed. My heart sank. I saw my name typed out in a message box. You shouldn't have looked. I froze. I didn't know what to do. What had I uncovered? Was it too late? Then the lights went out completely, and I heard a voice whisper, "You're not safe." I stumbled back as darkness enveloped the room. My heart pounded in my chest. I felt around for my phone, desperate for the light. I finally found it and flicked on the flashlight. The beam cut through the blackness, illuminating familiar objects. My cluttered desk, the stacks of papers, my laptop. But something felt off. My instincts screamed at me. I scanned the room for the figure I had seen. It wasn't there, but I knew I wasn't alone. I glanced back at my laptop. The screen still glowed, showing the ominous message. I could hear the steady rhythm of my breath, sharp and loud in the oppressive silence. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was watching me. I pushed my back against the wall, trying to regain my composure. I needed to think clearly. I searched through my notes, hoping to find something, anything that could explain what was happening. The symbols danced in front of my eyes like specters. Each one hummed with a strange energy. I grabbed a pen and started to sketch one of the symbols. As I drew, a low hum filled the air, vibrating against my skin. Suddenly, a loud bang came from the kitchen. I jumped, my pen falling from my hands. I took a step forward, heart thudding. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky. No answer. Just silence stretched out across the apartment. I crept towards the kitchen, trying to stay quiet. The beam of my phone didn't reach far, but I could see the outline of the counter. Then I spotted it. A glass had fallen to the floor, shattered into a million pieces. My breath hitched. Had I done that? I didn't recall knocking it over. I turned to find a way to clean it up when I heard it again. The whisper. "You're not safe." This time it felt closer. I turned slowly, adrenaline flooding my veins. The shadows felt heavier, more defined. I shuffled backward, the shards crunching under my feet. As I neared the living room, a figure shifted in my peripheral vision, flickering just out of sight. I couldn't breathe. I looked again. It was gone. My mind raced. Whoever or whatever had sent those messages, they were real. I could feel it deep in my gut. I rushed back to my laptop. Maybe I could find a solution. Maybe there was more to the report I hadn't seen. I scrolled through the archive documents, fingers trembling, desperate to uncover anything that might help. That's when I noticed a small line at the bottom of one of the reports. Warning, unauthorized inquiries may lead to unforeseen consequences. I felt my blood run cold. Was this a warning about me? Every hair on my body stood on end. I looked up, scanning my apartment again, the air thick with tension. Then a sharp sound from behind me made me jump.
I turned around just in time to see the front door begin to open, slowly creaking on its hinges. I felt my stomach drop. Someone was coming inside. I took a step back, holding my phone like a shield. Whatever was happening, it was escalating, and I was running out of time. I held my breath, frozen in place as the door creaked wider. The darkness loomed, swallowing the faint light from my phone. My fingers itched to bolt for the back exit, but my feet stayed glued to the floor. The door opened fully. My heart raced. Every horror movie I had ever seen flashed through my mind. The first thing I noticed was a shadowy figure blocking the doorway. I squinted, trying to see clearly, but all I could make out was a silhouette. Who's there?
I pushed the words out, my voice trembling. The figure didn't respond. Instead, it took a single step inside. The air felt charged, heavy with an unfamiliar energy. It was as if the darkness was alive, crawling into my lungs. I darted my gaze back to the kitchen. I needed something, anything I could use as a weapon. I spotted a stainless steel knife next to the stove. Before I could decide my next move, the figure stepped into the light. My stomach churned at the sight. It was a man, but his features were twisted, almost unnatural. His eyes glowed faintly, and the corners of his mouth curled into a crooked grin. "Why are you here?" I whispered, desperation creeping into my voice. "What do you want?" "We are all watching," he said, his voice low and smooth, like silk sliding over glass. My skin crawled at his words. Every instinct screamed at me to run. "You're digging too deep. You've breached the veil." "Breached the veil?" I echoed, trying to grasp what he was saying. Had my research really stirred something? I thought of the report, the symbols, the warnings. "That which you seek has consequences," he said, stepping closer. "Nothing is hidden without a reason." I backed away, my mind racing. "Stay back," I shouted, raising my phone as if it were a shield. "What do you mean? What have I done?" The man tilted his head, his grin widening. "Knowledge demands sacrifice." He took another step toward me, shadows swirling around him like a dark cloud. I felt panic rise. I turned and ran. I bolted past him, sprinting toward the back of the apartment. My feet slipped on the scattered papers, but I caught myself just in time. My heart pounded in my ears as I yanked the sliding door open. Outside was cold and dark, and I felt a rush of fear gripping my chest. I turned back to see the figure standing in the doorway, unmoving. I could barely see his face, but I could feel his stare piercing through me. Then, something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed violently in my hand. I glanced at the screen and froze. There, in bold letters, "Deletion in progress." Time seemed to stretch as I realized it was attempting to erase my work, the research I had spent so many hours compiling. This was beyond anything I had ever encountered. I had to stop it. I turned back to the figure, defiance filling my veins. "I won't let you take this from me." The smile vanished from his face, replaced by a look that was almost disappointing. "You'll learn." Before I could react, the shadows surged forward, and everything went black. I jolted upright, gasping for air as the darkness receded. I was outside, but disoriented. The cold air bit at my skin, but my mind raced in a different direction. My phone still buzzed wildly in my hand, the screen flashing, "Deletion in progress." I needed to focus. I pressed the power button, desperately to stop the data wipe. "No, no, no," I whispered frantically as the screen flickered.
The swirling shadows from before haunted my mind, leaving me with an overwhelming sense of dread. Suddenly, the buzzing stopped, my phone went still, and I held my breath, waiting. Had it finished deleting? I glanced down, and relief washed over me. The notification was gone, but so was my research. Everything I had worked on was wiped clean. I felt a hollow pit in my stomach. Then I heard something, a faint rustling sound behind me. I turned slowly, scanning the dim yard. The street lamp flickered, casting eerie shadows across the ground. "Hello?" I called out, my voice wavering. No answer. I took a step back toward the sliding door, unwilling to turn my back to the darkness. My heart raced as I carefully approached the entrance. Maybe I could find something in the mess of papers to salvage. But as I reached for the handle, something caught my eye, a glint of light reflecting off something metallic near the edge of the porch. I leaned closer and gasped. There, half buried in the dirt, was a small object. I knelt down to get a better look. It was an old pendant, shaped like a symbol I recognized from my research. My hands trembled as I picked it up,
staring at the intricate details. This couldn't be a coincidence. Had it been there the whole time? I felt an uneasy chill creep up my spine. I had read about symbols like this, tokens meant to protect or seal something away. But why would it be here? Was it connected to the figure? As I examined the pendant, a soft whisper floated through the air. Knowledge demands sacrifice. The man's voice echoed in my ears, sending shivers down my spine. My mind raced. Was this warning also a clue? I stood up abruptly, ready to bolt, when I noticed a shadow moving at the edge of my vision. My stomach twisted with fear. The figure had returned. He stood at the sliding door, his glowing eyes shining through the darkness. I could see now that his smile had returned, wide and predatory. "Did you find what you were looking for?" he asked, taking a step closer. My heart pounded. "No! Stay back!" I shouted, clutching the pendant tightly, unsure if it would help or hinder me. His laughter filled the night, echoing against the walls of my once safe home. "You have no idea what you've awakened." I felt the weight of his words. I had stepped too far into things I didn't understand, and now I was trapped. The urge to run surged again, but my feet felt rooted to the ground. And that's when it happened. My phone buzzed again, but this time it was different. A new message appeared. "Retrieval initiated." Panic set in as I realized something was coming for me, something worse than the figure blocking the entrance. I backed away from the figure, my mind racing. The message on my phone felt like a countdown, each second amplifying my dread. Retrieval initiated. What did that even mean? I glanced at the pendant again, feeling its cold metal press against my palm. Was this the key to stopping whatever was coming?
Suddenly, the figure lunged forward, and I stumbled backward. He was faster than I'd expected, his fingers grasping for me. I barely evaded him, darting past him towards the door. My heart pounded as I yanked it open, desperate to escape. I felt the air shift around me, as if the shadows had come alive, reaching for me. I bolted inside, slamming the door shut behind me. I leaned against it, breathing heavily. My mind was racing. What did he mean by awakened? The pendant, the whispers, the erased data, all of it felt connected. But how? From the other side of the door I could hear him laugh again, a low, haunting sound that sent chills down my spine. I pressed my back against the wood, feeling the warmth of the house contrast with the cold creeping into my bones. I needed to think fast. I spun around and rushed into the living room, scanning the space for anything I could use as a weapon. My eyes landed on a heavy brass candlestick sitting on the mantel. I grabbed it, clutching it tightly as if it could ward off whatever was waiting for me outside. The lights flickered, and I felt my stomach drop. "Don't do this," I murmured, glancing at the window. The shadows outside seemed darker now, crawling closer to the house, ready to break in. Then I noticed my phone buzzing again, vibrating against the table. I hesitated, my instincts screaming at me to ignore it, but I had to know. I picked up the device and saw a new message. "He is not alone." The sickening weight of those words hit me. Were there more of them? My heartbeat quickened again, and just then the lights went out completely. The world plunged into darkness. I stumbled backward, my breathing shallow. Panic clawed at me as I gripped the candlestick tighter, feeling lost. The darkness was oppressive, amplifying every sound. I could hear my own heartbeat, the rush of blood in my ears. And then, to my horror, I heard a soft tapping sound coming from the back of the house. Someone, or something, was trying to get in. I felt a surge of adrenaline. I had to escape. I bolted back toward the front door, but when I reached for the handle, a blinding light flickered on. I squinted against the brightness, and in that moment I caught a glimpse of two figures standing in the yard. They were identical to the man from before, their faces twisted in wicked grins. "Come play with us," they called in unison, their voices echoing as if they had been fused into one. I turned and ran down the hallway, my heart racing faster than ever. I had to find a way out before they got in. And then, just as I rounded the corner, I saw it, an open window at the end of the hall. But would it lead me to safety, or deeper into darkness? I dashed toward the open window, my instincts screaming at me to make a break for it. The evening air felt like a lifeline, but fear gripped me at the thought of jumping into the unknown. I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder.
The figures were still outside, their smiles widening as if they were savoring the chase. "Come play with us," they sang again, their voices sending chills down my spine. I shook my head, willing myself to focus. No time for fear. I needed to escape. Just as I reached the window, a loud crash echoed from the living room. Panic surged through me. They were in the house. I flung myself through the window without a second thought, the world blurring as I landed in a roll on the grass outside. Pain shot through my side, but I pushed it aside. Survival was my only thought. I quickly scrambled to my feet, glancing back toward the house. The light inside blared now, illuminating the silhouettes of moving shapes. I took off running toward the trees lining my yard, branches scratching at my arms and legs as I plunged deeper into the thicket. I tried to quiet my breathing, knowing they would hear me if I wasn't careful. I didn't have a plan. I just ran.
The pendant dangled against my chest, feeling heavier with each step. What did it mean? Why was it in my possession? My mind raced with questions, but now was not the time for answers. After what felt like an eternity, I reached a small clearing. I paused, leaning against a tree to catch my breath. That was when I noticed the ground beneath me was different, rougher. I knelt, brushing away leaves and dirt. Something metallic glinted in the fading light. I uncovered an old, rusted piece of technology. It looked almost like a scanner, with strange symbols etched onto its surface. My heart raced. Had this been here all along? What did it have to do with the pendant? I stowed it under my arm, feeling a strange pull from it, as if it were connected to my own fate. Suddenly, I heard the voices again, closer this time. "We know you're here," they called, sing-song yet menacing. "We just want to play." I crouched low, my heart pounding in my ears. I glanced around the clearing, searching for any escape routes. That was when I saw movement at the edge of the trees. A shadow stepped forward, but it wasn't one of the figures. It was someone else, another person. "Over here," they whispered urgently, motioning for me to follow. I hesitated at first, but the sense of urgency in their voice pulled me. I dashed toward them, my adrenaline spiking again. As I got closer, I noticed the person had a familiar face. It was one of my old friends from high school, someone I hadn't seen in years. But in this moment, the sight of them brought little comfort. "Do you know what's going on?" I asked, breathless. "They're coming for you," they replied, their voice shaken, "and I don't think we can stop them." In that moment, the ground rumbled beneath us. I stumbled, and the wrested device slipped from my grip, clattering against the stones. A low hum reverberated as the symbols began to glow faintly. I looked at my friend, and we stood frozen. What did we just awaken?
A flash of light erupted from the device, momentarily blinding me. I instinctively shielded my eyes, stunned as the reality around me twisted and shimmered. When the brightness faded, I found myself standing in a strange landscape. The trees were gone, replaced by what looked like a vast, open field that stretched endlessly under a twilight sky. "What just happened?" I gasped, looking around. My friend was gone, and panic shot through me. "Where are you?" "Over here," a voice called from behind me. I spun around to find my friend at the edge of the field, scrambling to their feet. Relief washed over me, but the sensation was short-lived. The ground trembled again, and I felt a shift in the air, an unmistakable heaviness. "Where are we?" I asked, dread clawing at my mind. "I don't know," they replied, glancing nervously around. "But I think whatever that thing was, it sent us somewhere else." Before I could reply, I heard the disturbing melody from before, echoing through the air. "Come out to play," it sang. I felt the color drain from my face. The figures were here too. They weren't just in my backyard. They had followed us. I started backing away, heart racing. "We need to hide," I whispered urgently, scanning our surroundings for cover. There were no trees, no bushes, just this eerie expanse. Without warning, a chilling laugh echoed across the field. "There's no escape." The voice was closer now, and I could make out shadows moving in the distance, their outlines distorted and flickering like candle flames. "Run," I shouted, and we took off, sprinting across the strange terrain. My legs moved faster than I thought possible, fueled by sheer terror. We zigzagged, hoping to confuse whatever was coming for us, but the laugh followed closely behind. We stumbled onto a peculiar structure jutting out of the ground. It was a large metallic entrance, something out of a sci-fi movie. A twinge of hope flickered within me. "We can hide in there." My friend nodded, and we dashed toward it, hearing laughter growing fainter behind us. As we reached the entrance, a vine-like tendril shot from the edge, snatching my friend's arm. "Help!" they screamed, but I had already leaped inside, driven by instinct. The interior was dark, filled with strange symbols and glow that appeared similar to the device we had uncovered. I could hear my friend's cries muffled outside. Panic threatened to choke me, but I knew I had to act. I fumbled for the scanner I had found earlier, clutching it tightly. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter. I pressed the rusted buttons, praying for a miracle, my friend still caught outside. Then the ground beneath me shook violently, and I worried I had made a grave mistake. Suddenly, a voice, a different voice, boomed from the entrance. "You will pay for your trespass." I froze, realizing I had awakened something else in the structure, something dark and powerful. In that moment of horror, I pressed one last button. The scanner hummed louder, and the symbols flickered to life, swirling with energy. I needed to know what would happen next. Would it open a way to save my friend, or was this my final moment? Then, everything went dark. I felt weightlessness at first. It was as if I was suspended in nothingness. My heart raced, each beat echoing in the silence that surrounded me. Then, a blinding light cut through the darkness, overwhelming my senses. I shielded my eyes again, and when I was finally able to see, I was no longer in the metallic structure. I was standing on a rocky ledge overlooking a different kind of landscape. This one was jagged and foreboding, filled with massive cliffs looming over a swirling mist below. I blinked, trying to make sense of what had just happened.
Panic clawed at my chest. "Where am I?" I muttered. "Right here," I heard my friend's voice again, but it sounded distant and muffled. I turned, hoping they'd emerge from behind a rock, but instead I saw two glowing eyes peering at me from the dark. My stomach dropped. "Stay back!" I shouted, stepping back from the edge. The eyes blinked slowly, revealing a large figure shrouded in shadow. A low growl sent shivers down my spine. From the mist, more shapes began to materialize, sinister silhouettes with contorted bodies, their movements jerky as they advanced toward me. "No, no, no," I gasped, retreating instinctively. In a moment of desperation, I fumbled for the scanner. It felt warm against my palm, pulsing as if it had its own heartbeat. "What do I do?" I whispered to myself. The scanner flickered, suddenly shifting modes, displaying a swirling pattern on its screen. I caught a glimpse of my friend's face, distorted in the glow. "Help!" they shouted, their voice echoing in my mind as if carried by the wind. "They're coming!" I couldn't stay here. I had to find my friend. Taking a deep breath, I took a few tentative steps toward the glowing eyes. If there was a chance of saving my friend, I couldn't let fear stop me. As I approached, the monstrous figure lunged forward, and I stumbled back, heart racing. It spoke, voice rough and echoing like stone scraping against stone. "You were not meant to be here." "Neither were you," I shot back, surprising myself with the courage in my words. The light from the scanner shot a weak beam into the mist, catching the creature's form. It recoiled slightly, its eyes narrowing. "What have you awakened?" the creature hissed, and with that, the mist began to swirl more violently around us, thickening with tension. I glanced back towards where I last saw my friend. "That's when I saw it," I whispered in disbelief. A glowing portal opened just beyond the mist, swirling with the same energy as the symbols inside the structure. Could it be a bathback? I weighed my options. I could try to face whatever these creatures were, or I could take a chance on the portal.
My friend was still out there, and the longer I stood here, the more I felt the darkness closing in. Without waiting another moment, I dashed towards the portal. But just as I leaped forward, shadowy tendrils shot out, reaching for me in a desperate grasp. I barely dodged them, but I could hear their voices behind me growing angrier. "Don't leave us!" they screamed. I didn't know what awaited me on the other side. Would I find my friend, or would I plunge deeper into unknown horrors? As I felt the rush of energy pull me through, I prepared for the worst. And then, everything changed again. I landed hard, almost losing my balance on the uneven ground. The world around me was a whirlwind of color, shifting like a kaleidoscope. I squinted, trying to make sense of it all. It wasn't the rocky ledge anymore. Instead, I found myself in a dense forest filled with towering trees, their leaves glowing in vibrant shades of blue and purple. The air felt electric, tingling against my skin. Then I heard their voices again. "Help!" My friend's cry came from somewhere within the thicket. My heart quickened, pushing me forward. Panic surged in me as I navigated through the enormous, otherworldly foliage. The trees etched strange patterns on my skin, and shadows danced along the ground as if they had a life of their own. "Where are you?" I called out, desperation creeping into my voice. The only answer was an echo of rustling leaves and distant whispers. It felt like unseen eyes watched me from the dark spaces between the trees. I glanced behind, half expecting to see the shadowy figures following me through this new realm. Suddenly, a flash of light caught my attention. I turned just in time to see a flicker of movement, a figure darting behind a massive trunk. "Is that you?" I called, hope igniting within me. I rushed toward where I had seen the movement, adrenaline propelling me forward. As I closed the distance, I tripped over a gnarled root and went sprawling onto the soft, mossy ground. I winced, glancing around for any sign of danger. But as I pulled myself up, the air shifted, thickening with a strange energy. That's when I saw it, a glimmering orb suspended in front of me. It pulsed with the same energy as my scanner, swirling with strange, luminescent symbols. My heart sank as I recognized it, an artifact from the strange metallic structure. But there was something wrong. The orb was cracked, lines of dark energy flickering along its surface. "Don't touch it," a voice suddenly rang out. I looked up sharply, and there stood my friend, their face pale and eyes wide. "It's a trap." Before I could ask what they meant, the orb erupted in a blinding flash, sending tendrils of energy spiraling out toward us. I instinctively grabbed my friend's arm, yanking them back just as the energy struck the ground where we had been standing. "Why is it here?" I gasped, pulling us both further away. "What does it want?" My friends shook their head, breathing heavily. "I don't know, but we have to get out of here now. I felt a creeping dread at the thought of confronting whatever force lurked just beyond our vision. We can't just run. We need to find a way to destroy that thing. The ground beneath us trembled, and more shadows began to emerge from the thicket. They were twisting shadows, faces merging and separating in a grotesque dance. I realized they were the same figures from before. "Come back," they hissed, their voices intertwining and filling the air with an eerie sound. Without thinking, I pulled out the scanner again. It flickered erratically, and I pointed it at the artifact. I hoped it could give us answers or a way to dismantle the lurking threat. As I maneuvered the device, the orb responded. It hummed, a low vibration that sent ripples through the air. A path formed in the underbrush, leading deeper into the forest, lit by a shimmering light that promised safety, or perhaps something far more dangerous. "We have to go," my friend urged, and with a final glance behind us, we took off down the path. I had a feeling whatever lay ahead was better than turning back, but deep down, a part of me wondered what we had truly awakened in this uncharted wilderness. The moment we plunged deeper into the forest, the air changed. The vibrant hues shifted to a dim, eerie luminescence that cast elongated shadows among the trees. Rustling leaves whispered secrets, and I could feel the weight of unseen eyes watching us again. My heart raced as we sprinted, fueled by a mix of fear and an inexplicable pull toward the ominous pulsating orb that seemed determined to ensnare us. "Do you think it can find us?" I gasped, glancing back at the swirling chaos we had escaped. My friend's eyes betrayed their fear. I can still hear them. Before we could process the implications of that statement, a tremor shook the ground beneath us. The shadows were closing in. "The path!" I shouted, suddenly seeing the flickering light ahead. It felt like salvation, or a trap. "We need to reach it." We barreled toward the illumination, the rhythm of my heartbeat echoing the frantic tempo of the chase behind us. My hand clasped the scanner tightly, its surface heating up as if awakening something dormant within. The nearer we got to the light, the energy radiated intensely. As we reached the clearing, the orb that had drawn us here floated before us, suspended between two ancient trees whose trunks twisted like gnarled fingers. It pulsed, casting waves of energy that refracted into kaleidoscopic reflections across our faces. My friend hesitated, fear evident in their eyes. "I don't think we should touch it," they warned. "What if it's another trap?" But the tendrils of darkness behind us were relentless. They were closing in, the laughter echoing around us, and I knew we had little time. "We need to end this," I said, trying to muster some courage. If this orb is tied to whatever's haunting us, maybe it's the key to stopping it. "But at what cost?" my friend argued, glancing back nervously. "We don't know what it could do." I stepped closer, feeling the energy draw me in, as if the orb recognized my intention. My heart raced. "I can deal with the consequences later. You should stay back." "No," they rushed to my side, pulling on my arm. "We face this together." In that moment, I could sense the shadows swirling, dark whispers beckoning us. Each call sent chills down my spine, but it also ignited a sense of profound determination. I wouldn't go down without a fight. "All right," I said. "Together then." We both reached out, and as our fingers brushed against the surface of the orb, the world shattered into brilliance. The light enveloped us, spinning everything around us into a vortex of color and energy. The shadows screamed in agony, their forms dissolving like mist under the sun's glare. But just as quickly as it started, it ceased, and we found ourselves in a vast, empty expanse, a dimension conjured from pure energy. It swirled around us, vast and infinite, yet we stood on solid ground. Panic flickered within me, but my grip on my friend's hand anchored me. Did we stop it?" I stammered, scanning our surroundings. "I don't know," they replied, looking around. "But this place feels different. It's quiet." As I caught my breath, I felt the energy around us resonate, swirling with a humming cadence. It was eerie yet strangely peaceful, though with every passing second, that tranquility felt tenuous. I could still sense the darkness lingering at the edges of this ethereal void, but I couldn't tell if it had truly been vanquished, or if it was merely biding its time. "Do you think they're gone?" my friend asked, a tremor in their voice. "Maybe," I replied, glancing back where we had come from, unsure whether the figures had really been vanquished, or simply retreated. As much as I wanted to believe we had escaped it all, my gut churned with unease. Without warning, another pulse reverberated through the space, and out of the swirling lights, new shapes began to emerge, features distorted, similar yet grotesque. The shadows hadn't left, they had merely transformed. "We're too deep into it now," I whispered, dread washing over me. What if this was just phase 2? "Then we fight,"
my friend asserted, looking defiant despite their previous fear. They squared their shoulders as a spectral figure began to manifest from the vibrant energy swirling around us. But before we could react, the figure smiled, a knowing, sinister grin that felt too familiar. "Knowledge demands sacrifice," it echoed, repeating the line from earlier that slithered into our minds with icy fingers. I took a step back, my heart racing once more. "What do you mean?" I shouted into the void.
"All who seek the truth must pay the price," it replied, and I understood with sickening clarity that the shadows had simply taken on new forms, shapes born from our own curiosities and fears. And just like that, the light began to dim, and with it, the knowledge that we might never truly escape this cycle haunted the depths of my mind. The questions nagged at me. What resonated in the darkness? What price would we pay for the knowledge we sought? I turned back to my friend, my heart heavy with uncertainty. We had stirred something profound within ourselves, but the real danger remained. I moved to grasp their hand again as shadows loomed closer, a darkness that held an eternal grip on the secrets of our existence. And just like that, with a final surge of light and shadow merging together, we stood suspended between this world and the next, not knowing if we were about to break free or sink deeper into the darkness that had always been waiting for us.